What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I'm your host, Shad Ailes, back here at the Traded Black podcast. Hope you're all having a great week. Got a banger show here today. We got Kyle Kazan and Graham Farrar from Glasshouse Brands to come on to talk about their banger earnings from last week. Some are saying it could be the best earnings report this earnings season. So we'll dive into how they're producing these kinds of numbers, as well as Matthew Wiz Buckley is going to join us afterwards. There was an interesting conversation President Trump had within his cabinet, and he brought up the topic of veteran suicide and some interesting tweets that Wiz has put out recently. He's has direct contact with the VA secretary and what this could possibly mean for the psychedelic space moving forward. So some moving parts. We talked about the first 100 days and more important issues that President Trump's going to focus on, but cannabis and psychedelics, it's starting to trickle in with some of the conversations that are going on. So it's interesting to see. We'll learn more. So with that, let's welcome in AV here on a Wednesday. Good job on Monday, my friend.
How's it going? I was going to say, good to have you back with the color off the top.
You like that?
Yeah, it's nice. Nice intro to get the energy moving. I'm a little more monotone.
Well, I will say,
delivery.
I have my strengths and you have your strengths, but I thought that interview you had with Caniglio was unbelievable. Like, you guys really went in depth, right? Yeah. You guys went back and forth, and sometimes when you guys are on, I like to exit stage left and just let you guys roll, because very fascinating interview, to say the least. And if you didn't get a chance, make sure to log on afterwards and check out the podcast from Monday. And then Michael Bronstein said, job well done as well. He enjoyed, obviously, the interview with one-on-one. So,
yep. And the Panthers kicked the Hurricanes' ass last night. I'm just going to keep reminding everybody how good we are until the Stanley Cup is back in Florida again.
Good night.
Over the next 3 weeks. Also, Jeff, if you'd like me to give you Brady's number, I can give it to you. I know you just ask on a weekly basis when he's coming out of hiding. Brady's not hiding. I'm assuming he's just busy. He's got a company to run.
We're also getting some new swag, and Brady Cobb, his guy that basically builds his swag, I had a call with him yesterday. So we got some cool hats coming up, and we're going to be launching relatively soon. It's a membership wall, some exclusive content in the next month or so, but we're going to have some really compelling content that we're producing. And I'm going to look to, obviously, a lot of you people always reach out as far as swag. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to add to our platform as well. I'll give you more updates as we get closer with that, but lots of moving things. And happy to announce that we hit 1 million views on our YouTube channel this week. So thanks to everybody that continues to support. We are growing lots, just about to hit the 50,000 sub mark. So again, if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe. It's amazing how much we're growing. And
important caveat there. It's 1 million views in the last 28 days.
What did I say?
You just said 1 million views, so it could have been within the last year
Sorry.
To date. It's been within the last month or 4 weeks.
Actually, last 21 days. So
there you go.
Yeah, I think you are Irish, but I appreciate it. All right, big show coming up. We've got Matthew Wiz Buckley coming up in just a moment. But first up, let's bring on perhaps the best earnings this season in Glasshouse Brands and their CEO and co-founder, Kyle Kazan, along with co-founder and president and member of board of directors, Graham Farrar. First time to the podcast. Good to see you, gentlemen. How's life in California?
Real quick, are we talking to the two cannabis Joe Rogans? Is that what I'm hearing? 1 million in 28 days is a big difference in 1 million. That's really impressive. Both Graham and I are fans of you guys. We think that it's a nascent industry. Someday it's going to be absolutely off the charts, and those who put in the work today, like you guys, will be like Joe Rogan's gonna be like, can I get on your show, guys? Please. So.
Looking back when we remember when we got to be on the Dales report. I mean, you guys got to be number one with those numbers. Is there?
We are. It's
no close.
It's growing a lot, but Anthony's expertise, my delivery of media, it's just this is what I envisioned from day one. So we're there. Now we just need some rescheduling. So you being in law enforcement,
did you envision real quick a hoodie with a nice jacket with some green neon behind you? There's a lot going on with that, Shad.
Do you like the new ticker symbol?
I love the ticker symbol.
Well, this app that I have needs to get a lot of OTC stocks within its platform, because it only has NASDAQ listing stocks. So don't be mad about
none of us are there yet.
Yeah. We'll get there. You know, when that stock shows up in there, you know we've arrived. But look, you're in law enforcement for 5+ years. Do you have Terry Cole on your speed dial? And if so, if you had a chance to talk to him, we will get into numbers. What would be your message to the head of the DEA, knowing, look, you've got a background in law enforcement and you've seen this firsthand in your days as being a police officer in Los Angeles, but Is it a priority for law enforcement right now? We hear it's not as much. Like, what's the message when it comes to rescheduling?
So great question, Chad. What I would tell you is, I would get a number of my fellow former U.S. attorneys, law enforcement, judges, federal judges, and say, this is the Law Enforcement Against Prohibition group that I've been part of forever, and say, let us tell you what it's like from the inside. You're on the inside. Let us also tell you our experiences and why this is an abject failure. And basically, by keeping prohibition, you're aligning with the cartels. If the cartels wanted anything, it's what we've been doing. So that's where we start. I want to make sure I point out just very briefly, a lot of people are saying versus, this administration versus the last administration. I would tell you that the last administration, there's all kinds of questions in the media from Jon Stewart on, who is actually running the show under the Biden administration. I have no idea. I think it's going to be very interesting. A lot of fun summer reading coming. What I would tell you is this president has shown in his first term and this term that you're either on board the Trump train and what engineer Trump is doing, or you're out of here. So I care much more about what the big guy, what he wants, than what Mr. Cole wants.
Do you think Terry Cole knows a lot of the things that you just outlined?
No.
So, well,
Sure.
His past statements have been very concerning. He gave very non-committal when asked as part of his confirmation. I would tell you, the people that are being drawn into the DEA, if you want to be at the DEA today, unless you're a radical change artist like I would be, you're probably somebody who believes in the mission of the DEA. I'm a person who believes in legalizing and regulating all drugs.
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't like the cartels. I don't like the illicit market. I want to end it. Mr. Cole is probably not that way. And I don't think Donald Trump is there, but I think he's there on cannabis, which to me, in the overall scheme, is huge. But for what we're talking about, it's everything.
I think what those guys miss, right, is that the options are regulate or no regulate. Prohibition is not an option. It's congratulations to drugs for winning the war on drugs after 25 years and how many trillions of dollars and how many years left. Not having drugs is not one of the choices. The choice is, do you have drugs that are tested, safe, regulated, age checked, taxed, etc., or do you just have free-for-all drugs, right? Like, no drug dealer. Drug dealers take credit cards. You can't do that in dispensary. They don't check IDs. They've got other things on the menu that actually are dangerous, right? So, like, what you realize is you get to regulate or you get to not regulate. You don't get to prohibit. And if you look at the science, and I mean, it's universal, I think, pretty much at this point, all the way to the Health and Human Services, it does not cause teenage use has gone down as legalization has progressed. Teenage use went down in Canada where they federally legalized. Kids do not consume more cannabis. The cannabis they consume is cleaner and safer, and it's probably harder to get, right? It does not make them consume more. It's not a gateway drug. It's not an on-ramp. It's an off-ramp, if anything. Schedule D, Medicare Schedule D spending goes down. There's less prescriptions. There's less opiates. Less people die. People are safer. You have a better society.
Yeah. I actually started watching this show on FX called Snowfall. It takes place. You guys ever heard of that show? It takes place in Los Angeles, but it's all about the epidemic of cocaine and drugs and crack cocaine back in the early 80s. And it's just the Just Say No era with Nancy Reagan. And as I'm watching this, like, we're still battling this 40 some years later. And when I look at the cars driving down the street, it's just like, that's a great example as to how much we've changed through time to say it's time to look at things a little bit differently, but we'll save that for another day. Let's get into some of the earnings. Did you want to add something there, Kyle?
Yeah. Chad, you and Anthony, hopefully one day, the four of us are going to meet up at our farm.
Yes.
One of the things we'd like to do is say, hey, let's get some cannabis. Let's enjoy a beautiful Southern California sunset. We're very close to Malibu. Our farm is ocean air. And then let's talk about, this is how things should be. And then let's go to the extreme of what's happening in Indonesia with that basketball player that could be facing execution.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Now, so it's just levels of crazy, Anthony. We have people serving life sentences in hard time in federal prison. We are not as crazy, but we're pretty darn close. So that was my only point of, California is got a lot of problems with their regulated space, but at the end of the day, we're not going to worry about police bothering us. We're not worried about the death penalty or prison. We're going to enjoy fresh, tested, regulated cannabis together.
We're talking about going to California.
One fun fact before we leave that topic. So cannabis Schedule 1, more dangerous than fentanyl, according to the federal government. There actually is a capital punishment clause in there. If you have more than 65,000 plants, they can bring the death penalty for a Schedule 1 drug. So
are we still at 64,999, Graham? Or
are you under that?
We keep it. We probably have that times 10, but never mind. So we're not facing a firing squad, but it's not because we're any more sane.
Right. We'll count that cautiously when we come out to California. But we might be coming out this summer. Big Mike from Advanced.
Please come visit.
Yes, Big Mike from Advanced Nutrients has actually invited us, and he's very close friends with Quentin Tarantino's brother. So maybe we can get Quentin on for a couple of minutes just to talk about the cannabis scene. That would be rather interesting and create a Quentin Tarantino style documentary when we're out there. But
Quentin Tarantino's brother. I think I know Denzel Washington's cousin's buddy. Nothing against Big Mike. I like Big Mike. I'm just talking a little shit.
Yeah, it's always that clown invited to a wedding. He's a friend of a friend of a friend, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about numbers and what many are calling the strongest earnings reports of the season. So let's unpack what made these numbers really pop. Revenue was slightly down quarter over quarter. However, the amount of $44.8 million was up 49% year over year. Biomass came in 152,568 pounds, which is 149% year over year. This is huge growth. Cost to produce is down to $108 per pound, at big improvement from $182 in Q1 of last year. So look, we've all heard, and you mentioned this facility in Ventura County, California. How do you attribute, I guess, these numbers to operational efficiency? And Graham, I'm going to start actually with you when it comes to some of these impressive numbers, knowing you're the hands-on person regarding this facility.
Yeah, so thank you, and to whoever said we had the best earnings, I like them, and I'd love to have them to the farm. So let's keep that going.
Many are saying, Graham. There's many people.
Someone beside my mom, hopefully. So it is expected to see revenue drop a little bit into Q1 from Q4. So that's totally expected. It's the seasonality of growing here under Mother Nature's one lighter in the sky. So the year-over-year growth is the right thing to be paying attention to. I mean, it comes down to, we have a phenomenal team. I think it's the best team in cannabis. We got hundreds of years of experience. We got guys that have been growing weed for 25 years. Folks have been operating large-scale greenhouses for 25 years. They're married at work and they're dedicated. And then we have this unicorn facility, as Kyle calls it, the nuclear aircraft carrier of cannabis growing, which is, it's a true unicorn. It's here in Southern California. It's got water. It's got great weather. It's got plenty of labor. Cannabis is allowed. And it's built for efficiency. It was originally built for tomatoes. It's a 5% margin business. So if you weren't efficient, you were gone. We've got on-site cogens. We've got roof washing robots. We've got ebb and flood floors. And you put a beautiful climate like we have here in California together with a phenomenal team and a great set of tools, and they do amazing work. So they just keep racking it up. We figured out how to find more value from things that we used to throw away. Now that we're selling, the flower quality is great, and I think we're going through the process of consolidating the market, which has always been Kyle and I's thesis from the beginning.
How did you drop the cost per pound from 182 to 108? Was it automation? Was it dialing in scale? Diving into that a little bit more, how did you achieve that?
Yeah, so there's no such thing as perfect in agriculture. What you're looking for is a continual incremental improvement. It's compound interest, basically, right? So you're trying to get a few percent better in a whole bunch of places, and that adds up. Part of it is the scale. The extra production helps with some things like property tax and insurance, where the bigger you make the denominator, the less of each of those kinds of things is in each pound. But a lot of it's just the team operational. I mean, what's an example? We have a thing called integrated pest management. We can't really use pesticides in cannabis because the testing's so strict. So we use a lot of bugs and a lot of scouting. And we recently moved from using paper scouting to scouting with tablets. And the labor savings there, again, as a absolute dollar amount, it's a couple $1 million, right? It just saved labor. So you go through and you do that over and over and over again in all the different areas, and it adds up. And the team's just, been really consistent about driving down that cost over time. It's been our thesis: is quality, consistent quality and cost. So that's California cannabis. That's a great value that eventually will be across the country.
And do you think that 108 is that the floor, or are you expecting to drive that down?
We're just getting started. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already committed publicly to $100 a pound, and I think even that's starting to look like it. We're going to have to be pushing further than that. So I think even that's now.
So is this a taste of the future, Kyle? Like you talk about this facility, but you also talk about the growing conditions. Like we one day kind of fantasize about the idea of this being federally legalized in growing conditions in certain areas of the country. We look at California, we look at Oregon. Is this kind of a taste of the future as to what we're beginning to see more and more as the industry, the regulated market industry, starts to change and mature a bit?
Yeah, I think you're going to find 95% of the cannabis sold nationwide comes from 3 states, and they're just along the West Coast. And that's because that's where the plants really want to grow, and they grow there efficiently. The terpenes grow really nicely under the sun. And so I absolutely think that you're going to see that. And I know we're probably going to get into hemp, but we are really excited because there's many great farmers here in California that have been put out of business.
Yep.
That if you could smoke what they grow nationwide, call it hemp, and follow those regulations, they're gonna kill it, and that's really the future.
Yeah, and for context on that what Kyle's saying there is not without precedent. If within the strawberries grown in the United States, 95% of them come from California. And in this case, it's not because people actually care where the strawberries come from. So they're not showing a preference for California. It just happens to be where the plant likes to grow. Strawberry is probably the best corollary crop from a growing conditions point of view to cannabis. If you think about big buds, it's like growing a fruit with no skin, which is pretty similar to the thin skin of a strawberry. So sometimes people say, hey, they grow tobacco in Kentucky. Okay, well, that's great. That's a leaf that doesn't rot. So good job. Good luck trying to grow, a big, thick, sticky bud with no skin on it. So strawberry is a very good corollary, and all of that comes out of California.
I look at
is this a semblance of you're building this company for legalization? You're building this company for interstate commerce to where the puck is going? Because when you look around and you look at the other MSOs, especially what their cost per pound is to grow, they're never getting to $100 per pound in biomass.
So 100%, Anthony. From day one, Graham and I have been thinking about what does the Stanley Cup look like in the United States? And because we're in California, which we have been very focused in on not expanding outside of our state, just stay in the biggest market in the country, stay in the place where you have the most educated consumers, that we have been doing this with the eye on legalization. And so right now we're enduring during prohibition. If we were in all other states or many other states and we were vertically integrated, we know that when all of a sudden you have now you have the whole country to play in, you're going to say, I don't want to grow here. I don't want to grow here. And you have to reset your company for a new day. We've just said, let's focus on what we think that new day looks like.
Not a lot of people drinking New Jersey wine in New Jersey, right? Not to say there's not great things that come from all the different states. It's part of what makes the United States great is we're the United States of America. So Michigan grows our cherries and California grows our strawberries, or Florida grows the oranges, right? Like that's what makes America as great as it is. So we just need to do the same thing with cannabis and ship that Napa wine and that California cannabis to the rest of the states that we already know want it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because Florida is effectively a swamp. And if it's one thing cannabis doesn't like, it's humidity and these conditions.
Right. And so then what you got to do is you got to spend a bunch of money, which is not only bad for business, but it's horrible environmentally because you're now burning fossil fuels to recreate what we get for free out my and Kyle's window right now. Like there's just no reason for it.
Yeah, makes sense. Retail revenues grew 19%. Go ahead.
Real quick. I want to get into that for sure. But when you guys are saying, okay, so you've got these 8 full-size truck bays and you want to send them to Florida, just understand, we've done the math. We're talking like less than a nickel per pound to take what we have here and put it right in front of you. So our costs, and it's incidental getting it anywhere in this country. So just if someone goes, oh no, don't worry, California's not coming. If they can take strawberries, they can certainly take cannabis. And then start melding in the cost that you just said of other companies that we would be competing with versus our costs and add less than a nickel per pound.
Revenue grew, retail revenue, I should say, grew 19% year over year. The California market overall declined 13%. So that's a massive 32-point outperformance. So based off of that, if we continue on this trend, how might the California market look like if you continue down the road that you're on versus, say, the market as a whole?
So there's still compression going on in this market. There's still a lot of pain amongst retailers, and they're battling it out. So the market is actually not shrinking. It's the pricing has come down. So people are still smoking the same amount of cannabis, but it's getting more and more painful. So what I think you're going to see is, unfortunately, you're going to see retail stores going out of business because they're concentrated in different cities. For us, what our North Star has been from day one is give the consumers the best possible product at the best possible pricing. And because we've been able to build a large company, we're okay lowering our price, leading with a $9.99, $9.99 out the door, including about a 40% tax, eighth of an ounce, and it's fresh. It's as good or better than you'll probably get anywhere in the country. And so you come to our stores, and we're over a 60% margin on that because of all the stuff that Graham and his team, when he was answering your question about the farm. So we've melded together. The one thing Graham and I haven't mentioned is, and Anthony will understand, being an LA Kings guy like he is and like I am, when you have excellence, you surround yourself with excellence. Yeah, we're not in the Stanley Cup this year. We decided to take a year off. But really and truly, we have an amazing team top to bottom, and iron does sharpen iron. So retail is pushing because the farm is pushing and the CPG team is pushing. And right now, it just feels like it's going faster and faster. And Graham and my job is to make sure that we're taking care of our people. We're still pushing, but we're also rewarding. And so we are super excited. 32% delta is like, I don't know if that's sustainable. But we just signed our first MSA. We think there's many more behind that. And as that happens, that means that if you're selling let's say you had the Shad brand and you're selling it to Glass House versus some of the other stores that may not be paying you, that our credit is golden. You can see how much money we have in the bank. And so we pay people on time. We drive a hard bargain, but you're going to get paid. So you don't have to worry about any kind of delinquency or loss. And so we think that flywheel just gets bigger and bigger for us there. And we're looking for strong stores that want to get stronger. Yeah. Some of our competition goes for the ones that you need to give CPR to. And that just takes a lot of energy. You're losing. You can't focus in on building the business when you're just trying to keep it alive. And we don't want that.
Well, so is that announcement that you just had with Leaf Brands with that MSA, is that the tip of the spear for what your strategy is to expand throughout California from a retail perspective? Like that's the plan?
Absolutely. And we have a very good loyalty plan. I'm also a Marriott guy. I love my loyalty points, and I'll actually walk 2 blocks from a conference. Yeah. So we have something called Friends of the Farm. So the one we just signed up with Leaf, and the Leaf guys, great guys. Yeah. Jesse's fantastic. But we basically said, hey, you got this one store here in California. Let us put some, magic sprinkles on it. It's out there in Palm Desert, which is a vacation spot. One you guys might want to go to when you come visit us. And now, if you live in LA or you live by Disneyland near our Santa Ana store, you've got your Friends of the Farm. You're more likely to go in there. And if you live out in Palm Desert, you come to LA, you can go to our pottery store. And so we think adding that, get into San Diego. So now we're down here, you go see Shamu, or, we want to get into San Francisco. So we want to get throughout the state. We don't want to control 20 stores in a market. We want 1, maybe 2 in a market at most. And then we want to do everything we can to make those consumers in that area know this is the place to shop because you're going to get the best possible pricing and product.
Okay.
It's also, I think, a testament to the power of the vertical integration that we've built here, right? So our retail team obviously doing a phenomenal job. The power of having 10 stores throughout the state, which puts us, somewhere in the top 5 for retailers, being able to drive that. As Kyle mentioned, we pay our bills on time. So we're good people, a good group to work with. And then you have the work that the farm does, which brings to the Allswell that $7.50 on the shelf. only at our stores and the stores that we manage, right? So it's the most consumed cannabis flower in California, but not everybody has that pricing. So to be able to take the power of the farm and leverage that into the power of retail to get people to actually drive across town to come get that value because it's a store that's either within our portfolio or that we manage is, I mean, that's the flywheel that, that Kyle mentioned. It just keeps spinning faster and faster. We just did a tour with our bud tenders, came up with a new product that Kyle and I heard from our bud tenders. Our manufacturing made it. It's now one of our top selling. It's our 10-10-10 deep sleep gummy, which is one of our best selling products now. Literally came from our bud tenders.
Speaking of brands, and I know that you guys now own Plus. I was actually one of the first investors in Plus and took it public back in the day. So, I mean, I know the complete story behind that with Jake and everything that happened to bring it here today. So I'm glad to see it in Florida in conjunction with Green Dragon. What's the strategy with Plus? Could you envision that being within, let's say, the hemp channel, as we've seen naturally derived D9 gummies explode, and that brand is a brand that at one point was the number one gummy in California for a very long time. Is that one of the, let's say, core brands like the Allswell that you want to scale throughout the state and nationwide?
Yeah, so Allswell is our value brand. Graham's got a hat that says Glass House Farms. That's sort of that everyday luxury. That's your añejo tequila, a little nicer than Allswell. And Plus is the same thing because we have Allswell gummies. So if you want 100 milligrams, $10 out the door, you can get that too. That said, I'm not my son. I actually make better money by far than he does. So I'm going to treat myself to Plus, and I'm going to treat myself to Glass House. Nothing wrong with the other two. If that's what he has and he decides to treat me, I'm happy to use both products. But, Craig and Jake built a really, really good brand. It fell on some hard times, and we were able to work something out with them. So we're super excited. To your point, yes, we love we're in Florida. What's our frustration is that 10-10-10 that Graham just mentioned, that our bud tender said, you've got to make this. And then Graham and his team went out and did it, is part of Plus. And we can't sell that in Florida because you can't use CBN. You can't. So it's not right now on our radar screen. We're going to start with hemp flower is where we're leaning now. But it is something we are talking about because, Anthony, I'd love it if you could just order a DTC and you can get that 10-10-10. And then or go down to your local liquor store and just buy it. And it's from us. It's tested. And if for some reason you had a bad experience, I mean, you guys have our phone numbers, but let's say you didn't, the company's going to stand behind it 100%. So it's on the list.
Okay. And then you mentioned hemp flower. Boris was on with us 2 weeks ago. He kind of alluded to the fact that he is in the process of, let's say, securing a clean supply chain for THCA flower. You guys have been talking about THC flower and hemp as part of the strategy for some time now. What is the strategy, or how are you looking at THCA flower and hemp as you could be one of those motherships, let's say, to supply clean, tested, trusted THCA flower coast to coast?
All right.
I'm assuming that's a Graham question.
Yeah. So kudos to Boris. A lot of respect for the fact that he recognizes the opportunity and he's willing to go for it. I saw him on your show and loved the line where he essentially said, we want THCA flower. Supply chain is not hard. Clean supply chain is hard. And I think that's exactly what, we want to step in and help make the industry a better place, essentially, with Congress legalized hemp or took it off this Controlled Substances Act if it has less than 0.3% Delta 9. That's something that we can do. We are, what we're the best at is growing the best cannabis for the least amount of money and doing it in a clean and fully tested way. We've never grown a pound that wasn't. So, everything out there, when you hear people talk about THCA flower, the main dig against it is it's got pesticides on it, it's got mold on it, it's got heavy metals or mycotoxins. California is one of the strictest standards in the entire country, and that is that we don't know any other way. So growing that, we've done multiple R&D runs. We're now moving into production, and our exact goal is to be on the other end of what Boris is looking for, which is a clean, consistent, reliable THCA supply chain.
So what happens? I spoke to Michael Bronstein today from Attach, and he's like, it's only a matter of time before this loophole within the Farm Bill is actually closed. So if you have ambitions to become, let's say, a national supplier of hemp, what then happens in a situation like that, Kyle?
So with all due respect to Michael, I've been saying the same thing, and now I'm not saying it because the money's already out there. You got a governor in Anthony State that clearly favors it. There's some potential scandal behind that. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be so sure that what he's saying is true, because if you ask Texas to actually close that door, no one's calculating how much sales tax they're going to lose, which is significant. Remember, they're a zero income tax state. So, and Florida, for whatever reason, Mr. DeSantis doesn't seem to be a fan of the regulated market. So I would tell you that anything could happen. I'm going to ask Graham to finish up the part of this of how we decided to do it to conserve cash and to sort of de-risk it quickly for ourselves, because I think it was a brilliant strategy he came up with that we all circled around. But I would tell you, I'm not, what I am confident is, and where I am undefeated, is being wrong in predicting what's going to happen with legalization of cannabis. So maybe Mr. Bronstein would like to join me in being 100% wrong. So Graham, why don't you hear the speed and the de-risk?
Yeah, so we certainly recognize the uncertainty on the regulation. We also recognize that this is cannabis, right? So you've got kind of you got two versions of uncertainty. You can have licensed cannabis where the rules are fairly clear at the state level, but the federal government says Controlled Substances Act, Schedule 1, nothing's more dangerous, go to jail forever, right? Or you can have hemp where at the federal level, they say, here's the guidelines and you're in the clear. And then the states are pretty are gray and murky. And that means not only the production state, but the recipient state and then the federal government. So I think, Kyle touched on Texas. Really curious to see how you shut down an $8 billion business where people are now used to doing what they want.
So if it does say the status quo, do you think that's just going to open up more doors or more reasons why rescheduling is going to happen with cannabis? Because at the end of the day, do I want to see something subtracted from the hemp industry? Look, I want this obviously cleaned up, but I also want
cannabinoids to be everywhere, right? That's what you want. And at this point, it almost becomes, if you think of the decision tree, right? So the idea that this was a loophole. Okay, if it was a loophole, we're now 7+ years into not closing it, right? Like if I keep doing something my wife tells me not to, she assumes after 7 years that I'm doing it intentionally, right? Like it would be easy change.
Are you guys still together in that situation?
Right, exactly. So, and then you look at alcohol being involved in there, right? And so they're clearly interested in the beverages. It's pretty intellectually inconsistent to say, hey, Delta-9 cannabis is legal in this can, but Delta-9 cannabis, THC, isn't legal in this plant.
Right.
Full credit to the Alcohol Wholesalers and Spirits Association for one of their platform planks being that the Delta-9 THC is naturally derived and not synthesized, because there's a whole lot of risk and bad public policy in that. But if it's natural, it had to come from a plant. So almost by definition, you get to the plant needing to be legal to support this. And Kyle's point, money's out on the table. Don't see it going away.
Yeah.
All that said, we know that the rules can change. So we're going for a very fast and CapEx light approach to entering this commercial production. The idea being that, if something happens in 6 months, we're already, kind of at least back to the zero from the cost and capital liability. If it maintains status quo, we don't want to be sitting on our hands 12 months from now talking about starting. We want to be full go, so we're going for it.
Before I let you guys go, did you want to add anything, Kyle?
Yeah, the one thing that I would say where Michael might be right and where we are very cognizant, one of the Twitter folks, and I'm sure he follows you guys, is the Dank Informer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he went out and got his hands on some tests of what's inside this unregulated hemp. That's a problem. VapeGate really changed the game out here. It was a real problem. And so you have to understand that, the role of government, in my mind, is to regulate markets. And right now it's completely unregulated, and you can have some very bad outcomes. And people are going to go, what the hell are you putting in your body? So the quicker that we, and I know Boris would do it the right way, where we're used to providing, and we're big companies, so we're a target if you don't do things the right way. We need to make sure that what is being sold in gas stations, liquor stores, DTC is actually clean, regulated, at least self-regulated, openly transparent product, or else you could have a problem.
With that question, I don't know if you've thought this far into it, but let's say THCA flower, it's just allowed. We don't get any sort of rollbacks. Do you foresee, or would you guys allow let's say the MSOs to be buying that from you wholesale and white labeling it and repackaging it themselves? Or is that a proprietary thing that you want to keep to your brands on the shelf? Because you would be, I don't see them retrofitting any of their infrastructure to be growing THCA flower if it is allowed to flourish. I would see them probably wanting to source it, and you guys might be the only game in town that's trusted on a national scale.
I think we're capitalists. We also know most of the folks at the MSOs, and we want them to succeed as well. So I would tell you that we are as dialed in California up and down the state as anybody, and we would anticipate that having those 8 full-size truck bays, we are going to be distributing ours and other people's flower here in California. And so I absolutely, Anthony, we would absolutely sell. We can actually co-pack for people if they would like that. So there's a lot of things we can do. We can also be the intel inside where they see Glass House if that helps them as well.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably also the only cultivator that could even have a conversation at a national scale, right? So if you start thinking about what you really want to do, there's very few people that could even entertain that conversation. And we've always been pretty clear that we're looking to be Coca-Cola, not CVS or 7-Eleven. So a lot of the MSOs are very heavily indexed in retail where we're not and don't desire to be. We want to be the products on the shelves. So probably a lot of different deals that could be done there to have Glass House brands on the shelves, as well as the white label and co-packing that Kyle was talking about. They may just end up hand in hand.
How'd you guys meet?
Oh, that's a fun story. You going to tell it? Yeah. So
let me give a little tease, because it's a longer story that we don't have time for here. But I would tell you that I got into a bad deal as a general partner. When I say bad deal, it was our first farm, which is our small 150,000 square foot. And I realized as a limited partner that the area was not legal. I owned a farm we're going to turn into cannabis. It's not legal. The people that were in and around it, one was indicted for conspiracy to commit murder on his ex-wife. The guy that he was really close with, the lawyer that they liked was a disbarred attorney that he represented Suge Knight in his disbarred way. Wow. So it was a cast of characters. And as I was trying to understand how bad my situation was as a 1/5 partner in this thing, I met Graham. And Graham was somebody that I liked right away. Some of my good friends that were there. And then ultimately my wife and my business partner, his wife, the two wives were like, we like that guy. He's really smart. And then we came together. Graham will remember I did the very, very difficult extraction work from my gritty self of getting rid of all those folks in a good way so that I don't end up with, like I'm straight out of Compton with somebody smoking cigarette going, how you doing, Kyle? Right outside my house. So we worked together, and from there it was, like they said in Forrest Gump, peas and carrots.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and crazy too. We're almost 10 years now, looking back on it. So it's getting pretty close. 2016 was when we really started, and so it's we're not too far away. Which the first farm came, we thought it was the biggest thing anyone had ever done, 150,000 square feet. Now basically an R&D facility. Then we did the second farm at 350,000 square feet. We were sure that was the biggest thing anyone's ever done. Then we did a dispensary together, and then we found the white whale down here in Ventura County in Camarillo. And as soon as we walked into that, we basically knew we had to have it. We just need to figure out how. It took us about 3 years, and now here we are, a public company, and $200 million in revenue last year. It was pretty exciting to see how far things go.
It's a great story.
The Kismet part of it is he's a tech guy who loves this plant and growing it. And I've been a real estate business guy that also has a deep, I have a lot of high net worth individuals that I made a lot of money for that are willing to take risk with me. So you combine that, and then we were able to execute and attract good talent, and just sort of keep swimming upstream like the proverbial salmon.
Really good combination. The yin and the yang that it takes to make it, and even have a chance to make it in cannabis.
Well, did you reach out to Matt Damon, Kyle? Because it looks like Graham's Matt Damon's twin brother.
I'll take it. The young Matt Damon, I assume you mean young Matt Damon.
He looks a little bit older, right? Yeah. Anyway,
he can play us in the movie when they make the biopic.
There you
You're
go.
right there, Chad. He is wicked smart.
How you like them buds?
It's a great movie.
Ford versus Ferrari. What a great flick. Gents, listen, I appreciate the check-in here today. Congrats, obviously, on the year-over-year numbers, and let's keep in touch with you. And like I said earlier, I'd love to get out to California, so we'll speak with you and your team and hopefully get out there this summer, which I think a lot of our audience would very much appreciate. Leave some comments below, people, and let us know you find it beneficial. Yeah, if Anthony and I took a trek out to California and got some footage of the facility. Like, I know you had CNN out there, but we don't have to worry about commercial breaks. We can go in depth.
Report live from the greenhouse. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Is that
we could definitely do that.
And how about Chad and Anthony in a show live out in California at the facilities? I mean, there's lots of things we could do. The invitation, we'd be honored to have you guys come to our facility. Sanjay Gupta, it was very cool to have him out there, but we certainly enjoy you guys and know your long-term cannabis. So we appreciate it.
All right. Listen, appreciate it. Appreciate the support, and let's keep in touch. Okay, gentlemen?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Good little combination that they have between the two of them, but good to finally get Graham on. I know we've had Kyle on a few times, but numbers don't lie.
It's a good, interesting story. It's a good, interesting story. There's many more facets to it than the MSOs that we usually talk to, and I mean, what they're doing is working. And
when you compare with some of the MSOs in the Midwest, like it's just, there's no comparison, but we're still years away from full, if we ever see that day, full on legalization. But if that day were to come, there's a sign from that.
But if I tend to agree with Kyle, I mean, THCA flower, we all would like to see it, let's say, reeled in, but we're sitting here 7 years later, it hasn't been reeled in. And there's a lot of people that fundamentally understand what it is and what it's doing. There's a reason for that. Let's see what happens on a go-forward basis as far as the definition in the Farm Bill.
That's our featured interview that wraps up segment number 1 here in the Traded Black podcast. Now time for segment number 2, Psychedelic Market Minute, presented by Advisor Shares ETF P-Cell. Let's go. Wednesday, Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, with Anthony Varrell, investor in both the cannabis and psychedelic space. He's raised a lot of money, millions of dollars of money in this industry. So how do you like that little intro? And bringing you up, making you look legit and qualified and everything.
That caught me off guard. Yeah, sounds great.
Sounds great. Well, listen, one guy that's been on some high-profile podcasts recently, including Megan Kelly, Fox. He's a good friend of the show. Let's welcome back Top Gun fighter pilot. He's the founder of No Fallen Heroes and Top Gun Options Trading School. Mr. Matthew Wiz Buckley. Good to see you again, sir. How are things?
What's up, fellas? I am living the dream, man. Been a pretty incredible past 3 weeks. But before we get airborne, I need to let you all know that 4 years ago this morning,
4 years ago this morning,
4 years ago this morning, I woke up on a mattress in a home in Mexico with 4 other guys, and today is my rebirth day. Today's my 4-year anniversary. I even got my Ibogaine t-shirt on, man. I went to Mexico and I got the t-shirt.
So put into words, being a veteran, and I know you had some interesting conversations with me last night, and I think this is interesting for our audience to know that there was a recent meeting with Trump and his cabinet, and at this hearing, veteran suicide, the topic was brought up, and you had a direct conversation with the VA secretary. One, that's impressive that you're beginning to have these kinds of relationships with people that have a direct contact with the president of the United States. We're now post 100 days, and you have said the urgency needs to be now because, like you've said, I think it's 22 veterans commit suicide every single day. Is this data that you think President Trump is aware of now based on the conversations you've had with the VA?
Yeah, man. Well, we're getting there, right? We're building an airplane in flight. I think it was before the inauguration. I put a calendar reminder, man. I think it was April 29th. I had a calendar reminder on my phone that popped up that said 100-day. I don't know why it's the 100-day point, but that's kind of where you debrief the administration, like first 100 days in. I had a calendar reminder that popped up. And if I hadn't heard, anything out of the administration, I was going to take a flamethrower to him. And I did. And the VA secretary responded. I blasted him on X pretty hard, and he responded and said, "Hey man, I'm trying," and blah blah blah. Woke up the next morning to him shooting me a direct message. "Hey Wiz, I need you to reach out to my chief of staff. We're trying to get this done, and looks like you're doing some good work." So I called or talked to the chief. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in DC next week. Okay. I'm going to the federal summit on psychedelic medicine, the Psychedelic Medicine Coalition. Melissa Lavasani was hosting this federal summit at the National Press Club." So I told the VA folks, I said, "Hey, I can fly in a day early if you want to meet in person." They said, "Yeah." So man, during my anniversary month, I'm walking into the VA, not as a patient or a protester, but as an advocate. It was a surreal moment. And went up to the 10th floor where all the heavies have their offices and hanging out, giving a brief overlooking the White House. And it was funny because at the half an hour point, the lady grabs her phone and she's texting. I'm like, well, that's rude. I wouldn't do that. Well, in hindsight, I think she felt me out for about a half an hour to make sure I wasn't a lunatic and a nut. And at the half an hour point, knock, knock, Secretary Collins walks in and says, "Wiz, heard you're in the building. I've got to shake your hand." I was blown away, man. I mean,
Wiz, are you becoming the face of this mission, you think? Because look, we look, Anthony, we talk about, Sam, Kevin Sabat, like whether you like or don't like him. And I know a lot of people don't like him on this platform, but they have a clear, concise message and a face for that. Is this where we're headed? And like, is this what you want ultimately, is to be the face for a lot of this and to bring more attention? Because look, no.
But bro, let me remind folks of my mission objective of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation after healing veterans, first responders, and their families is to go away. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't want a nonprofit. I mean, maybe we transition to helping the kids of folks who had committed suicide or something along those lines. I shouldn't be doing this. So my mission objective is to go away. But Shad, to his credit, I gave the secretary a coin, our No Fallen Heroes coin. He looked me dead in the eyes. He said, "Wiz, if anybody's going to get this done, it's going to be us, and it's going to be now. They didn't do it for the past 4 years. We're getting momentum." Yeah. Fellas, this was 2 days after I flamed him on Twitter and he answered me. 2 days later, after that flame on Twitter, I fell out of my chair in this office. Donald Trump. I'm not digging the cabinet meetings. It's like a self-licking ice cream cone. But each secretary, kiss the ring. And so after Secretary Collins, kind of gave his little executive summary, Trump looked at him, leaned forward, and said, "What's going on with veteran suicide?" You could have heard a pin drop in my house. I'm like, did the president of the United States just say the words veteran suicide? I'm 57. I've never heard those words out of a president. Collins, to his credit, said, "Mr. President, we've been throwing so much money at veteran suicide, and the numbers are staying the same. They're actually going up." He said, "We're going to look into psychedelics, Mr. President, and there's some nonprofits out there doing some good work." Bro, I ran out in the yard and I started yelling. My wife's like, "What the hell happened? Somebody die?" I'm like, "Well, kinda, but we're being reborn, man." So all of that happened. And when I was at the VA meeting with the secretary, Lieutenant General Bergman, 3-star Marine aviator. He's a fellow aviator. He's a congressman from Michigan. Him and Congressman Correa, they have the PATH Coalition, psychedelic, whatever. It's the Psychedelic Coalition in Congress. When I was at the VA, they sent a letter to Collins like, "Hey man, we heard you in the cabinet meeting. We want to meet and we want to get psychedelics for veterans." And then the next day, I went to the National Press Club for the federal summit and met Lieutenant General Bergman and Lou Correa. So man, in the past 2.5 weeks, it has literally been a whirlwind of goodness. Up in DC, I remember going out to dinner like a loser by myself when the president announced his new Surgeon General pick. The doctor says psilocybin helped heal her, helped her find love. This is the nominated Surgeon General. And then 2-3 days ago, the FDA commissioner said getting psychedelics approved for therapeutic use is a top priority of this administration.
That's good.
I'm blown away, bro.
So question was, we're seeing a lot of momentum. Obviously, you're spearheading a lot of this. We're seeing the conversation really moving. How much more pressure do we need to put on this to actually get action? Because I don't want to say that we've been here before, but we have been here before in a semblance of the matter. And it seems like this time we're actually getting stuff rolling and the right people are there. But how much more effort really does need to be applied to get something done?
Fellas, I think we talked about this a couple of years ago at Psych Science. This is a we the people moment. This is not coming from them down. This is coming from us up. Last week, Marcus Luttrell and Governor Perry, $50 million Ibogaine initiative passed in the great state of Texas, man. Doesn't get any more red Republican law and order than Texas. They passed a $50 million Ibogaine initiative. Long answer to your short question, man. I looked at the secretary and I told him, I said, I appreciate this, Mr. Secretary, all words, action. And I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. We have a saying in a fighter pilot debrief. If you're going to throw a knife, make sure there's a note attached. So I had my bullet points, man. I said, Mr. Secretary, what can we do? I'm like, immediately with the stroke of somebody's pen, you could provide vouchers. Okay. If a veteran is coming out of pocket $2,500 or God forbid $7,500 to sit with Ibogaine in Mexico, get the receipt and cut them a check, man. These men and women are down on their luck. Or I told them, I'm like, we're probably in for $750,000 so far over the past however many years given grants. I'd love to get that and copy paste to everybody on my list right now. And he said, wow, vouchers is pretty good. So I left him with some action items. Again, Anthony, long answer to your short question. We just got to, I told him, I said, man, I'll flame you again, sir, if it's needed. So this is a we the people moment. Pick up the phone, call your representatives and let them know psychedelics are for therapy.
Anthony talks about how this could feel a little bit different. We are getting somewhere. FDA Commissioner Dr. Martin Macri, did you hear his comments about the calling to prioritize psychedelic therapeutic research? He said recently, I know there's a few companies that applauded that decision. So again, as much as we want the here and now change to happen, it does feel somewhat different. But how much do you read into that, knowing the FDA commissioner is calling basically to prioritize psychedelic therapeutic research?
So in the military, if we want to blow up D, we don't go sequentially. We got to get to A, to B, to C. Let's get to D. We attack A through D, man. It's called attacking in parallel, right? Shock and awe. So I said, Mr. Secretary, I get it, because he said it in the cabinet meeting. He said, psychedelics, nonprofits, we're going to look into it. We need to look into it to make sure it's safe and everything like that. I'm like, dude, I get it. Dr. Deborah Mash from Demorex. I joined the advisory board recently. She's been working with this compound since the early 90s. So Mr. Secretary, I'm like, don't reinvent the wheel, man. Don't do all the research that's kind of already been done. Go blow the dust off of the existing and let's get this done right now.
That's a good point. I was going to say what they need for psychedelics is they need the equivalent of the HHS report that we got for cannabis.
Good point.
The research is there. There's a myriad of billion-dollar funded, publicly traded companies that are doing research. There's foundations and organizations that have decades of research.
Precisely.
Go aggregate all of that, have Kennedy come up to a conclusion, and actually draft a document that proves the science and skip the research phase, because research just means elongated timelines where people are going to continue to be harmed, and it's just going to take forever.
Well, I think last time I was on, fellas, I was pretty harsh, right? The one under the last administration in December, we've awarded $1.5 million to study MDMA. I'm like, you spend $1.5 million in 15 seconds in this government. And it's spread out over 5 years. That was a little bit of an FU to us. They might as well have given us nothing, right? So. And I'm going to publicly apologize to the secretary, because when Trump nominated him, I'm like, we're done. The guy, and I will say the words that I used at the time, he's a Bible beater, because he's an Air Force colonel. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs is in the Air Force Reserve or Guard, and he's a chaplain. I'm like, oh man, we're done. If this guy's on the God Squad, we're in trouble. He's 180 out, and I apologize, man. He's reverse God Squad. He's like, Wiz, if this stuff is going to work. Because as you guys know, on social media, it's usually the folks, when I say, hey, I met God and I healed everything, who start ripping me apart for practicing idolatry. That was Satan, and go back to church, Wiz. So, and he told me, and he said this publicly, he sat with RFK. He's like, man, that I saw that guy's soul when he told me about his son and his wife and the suicide and him healing with these medicines. This guy's got some airspeed on the jet, fellas. But again, as I've told you that old story, when I stopped going to DC 3 years ago after that Republican congressman said, oh, you're going to have a problem with big pharma and alcohol and tobacco. I'm like, done. I'm just going to go out on the front lines and heal people. So the secretary was honest. He's like, Wiz, there's a lot of forces in this town that are not digging what we're doing. But that's around the point in the conversation when he said, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be us, and it'll be now.
What a times that we live in.
Fellas, there's no way in hell I thought this 4 years later we'd be here. So I'm happy we're here.
We're making progress.
Yeah, man. It's, you know, I sat here this morning doing my morning meditation on my 4-year anniversary. I'm like, transport yourself into the future, Wiz. What's the next 4 years look like?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm holding my punches a little bit directly to the president. I mean, the guy's got a printer next to his desk signing executive orders. He could, with the stroke of a pen, either, you know, make it Schedule 3, make it like ketamine, man. Ibogaine.
Well, what do you think this announcement means last week about slashing big pharma prices as much as 30 to 80%? Like, should we read much into that?
There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance to that.
I'm sure there is. But
it was funny when that happened. All the psychedelics, publicly traded psychedelic stocks popped, didn't they?
Yeah.
So my biggest fear, fellas, you know, I invest in all these things. I'm in the REIT, you know, Danny and Cody's Healing Realty Trust and Demorex and a bunch of stuff. My biggest fear is big pharma goes, because we're at a critical mass. It's jumped the lab. It's out into the zeitgeist. You know, they're talking about it. Mom and pop on the street. This ain't your hippie mala bead wearing drug rug type of stuff. These are Navy fighter pilots. These are SEALs. These are first responders. These are Gold Star moms who lost their sons or daughters. So it's out. It's too late for pharma. My fear, my wish as an investor is this: they scoop in, buy them all up. My fear is they do that as a healer and they shelve them, or they end up, you know, they change one molecule and call it ibogaine and charge 30 grand for it and keep it out of the hands of the
is that a real possibility?
The question, I understand, like, ibogaine obviously is very strong. I've never taken it, so I can't really speak on it, but I'm assuming it's much more of a different experience than, let's say, psilocybin, as far as the therapeutic goes. But psilocybin, on the other hand, is getting traction in certain jurisdictions as a legal therapeutic. Have any of these vets, let's say, tried psilocybin or turned to psilocybin as I don't want to even call it a legal alternative, because it's not really a legal alternative, but something that you can actually do on U.S. soil that is relatively accessible?
My brother, I'm pleased to announce we hit one of my mission objectives for this foundation 2 years ago, was to heal our heroes at home. Getting on an airliner to go to Mexico or Costa Rica would infuriate me. I'm having to flee this country to heal young men and women who incurred trauma serving it. 2 years ago, started in Colorado, man, and now we've done 2 or 3 retreats up at Daniel Carcillo's place in Oregon. So, but Anthony, I'm going to hate talking like this, man, but I have to. Running a foundation, you got to run it as a business too.
Yeah, I hear you.
4 years ago today, fellas, it cost $3,500 to sit with ibogaine. It's $7,500 to 10 grand at the place I went today. Yeah. New York Times, Rick Perry. They're not nonprofits, folks. The folks that run these clinics.
They're big for-profits. Yeah.
So here's my dilemma, man. I want to get traumatic brain injury, addiction folks really get to ibogaine, but man, if I can send a vet to Oregon or Colorado to sit with psilocybin, it's legal at the state level. I hate talking like this. I can do 2 or 3 for 1. So long answer, short question. Yeah, we're healing heroes in the United States, but I mean, this is granddad. This is a 12 to 14 hour, one of the most challenging things that I've done in my life. But the infrastructure is, you need infrastructure for ibogaine. It has the potential to lower your heart rate. So you got to get an EKG. You're hooked up to an EKG throughout the night. There's 2 nurses there. There's a cardiologist sleeping downstairs. There's an ALS in the driveway. So that's going to take some coin to put into Oregon or Colorado or New Mexico. But you're right, Anthony, that none of those issues exist with our psilocybin retreats we do in America. Yep.
Some of the things I've heard is that if there's anyone schizophrenic in your family, is this a therapy that you cannot do?
Immediate answer is maybe. I never say a no. I don't answer that, man. I turn them over to the medical directors.
Yeah,
getting MDs.
I hear you.
So it depends on the exact thing, Shad. But it's a great question. I say maybe you got to talk to the docs. I'm clueless about it. But if there are serious mental issues or a lineage of that in your family, it maybe not, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hear you. 30 to 80% big pharma price reduction. We saw a bit, as you said last week. I also wanted to mention Point72 Asset Management, which is led by a contact of yours, Anthony Steve Cohen. They announced that they bought some more shares of Cybin. I think the fund purchased 899,999 shares of the company's stock. It's valued at $7.938 million. Sounds like a lot. It's a very small sliver when you look at their overall portfolio size, but we've talked about this before in the past, Anthony, that they have shown interest in Cybin, but we did see some stocks, including Atai Life Sciences, move last week. Were you following it closely, Wiz?
Yeah, Atai, $1.50 type of stock up to whatever it was, $2.10 today before the bond market decided to, the bed and the market pulled back. These names are ripe to explode, fellas. I love that SIL is your sponsor because I tell people, Atai, MindMed, Cybin, Compass. This is the internet 1999, folks. There's a Netscape, there's a pets.com, a Google, and an Amazon. You pick the right two, you're rich. You pick the wrong two, you're broke. Why don't you buy the basket? Why don't you SIL's got it's got a sprinkling of all those, and then a couple others like Sage and I forget all of them, but there's a good distribution in SIL. I'd buy SIL with both hands. I own SIL and I own some of the individual names too, because I like Atai and Ibogaine. But Dr. Mash left Atai, took some stuff with her, and that's why she started Demerex. She's developing a medicine, I think in phase 2 for AUD, alcohol use disorder. I am proud to say at this point, I was a drinker.
Yep.
I was not a good drinker, and I was not a good drunk, and people around me suffered from it. I couldn't look at or smell alcohol for up to a year after a single dose of Ibogaine. So it's called nor-Ibogaine. So Ibogaine is 12, 14-hour ass kicking. Nor-Ibogaine, it's processed in your liver, ain't a 12 to 14-hour ass kicking. It's a take it by mouth. I think there's 39 or 40 million Americans that suffer from AUD and probably more who don't admit it. Could be potentially cured with nor-Ibogaine. I mean, this space it's technically they're biotech firms, right? One morning you might see breaking news, Atai up 400% in pre-market as, something gets reported or Pfizer swoops in and buys them. So we're rigged for speed, fellas, in this space, in my opinion.
Well, always appreciate the update and, just the feedback that you are developing in Washington. PSIL is the sponsor of this segment. Again, it trades on the New York Stock Exchange ARC under the ticker symbol PSIL. But that's the power of obviously an ETF is owning a number of these stocks versus just one and limiting your risks. But all in all, good stuff.
You guys know I run Top Gun Options, man. If you're not in the mood to buy the shares, go buy some upside call options, man. Go out and as far as you can on the options chain, as high as you can, buy some calls, put them in your filing cabinet, forget about them. And one day you might look in that filing cabinet and those things are filthy green. So always look at the options too, if you're not interested in, tying up money buying shares.
Well,
shameless plug.
Yeah. Well, listen, happy 4 years on your anniversary. I was not a good friend to alcohol either. I remember getting treatment as a good friend of mine. He just was being asked by one of the counselors, like, Leonard, how many lines of cocaine do you think you've done in your life? He said just one. Of course, it was 4 miles long. And I always remember that joke. Anyways.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, good for you to make the right decisions and steps in your life. And more importantly, I give it up to the main pilot in command, man. I'm just I'm robbing a village somewhere of an idiot. So I had lost my faith for decades based on my childhood and military trauma, but now I'm back, baby.
And
that's awesome.
I don't need a middleman or a middle woman in between me and that, whatever you want to call it, thing. I can go direct, which is also why a lot of people don't dig any of these medicines. But that's
there's some
conversation.
There's some people that purposely want to be the face of something, and then there's other people that just so happen to walk into it without wanting it. And I think that's what you're building out, because there's a lot of people that obviously respect your name and voice, and you've made a lot of appearances outside of this industry, but I think in some ways that indirectly helps you when you're speaking to Washington. But as always, we appreciate you coming on here and just giving some insight on what you're seeing from some of your contacts that the average person doesn't have access to. And more importantly, as far as options is concerned, some great advice. This isn't investment advice, but just some of the stuff that you're playing. But let's keep in touch, okay?
Go Panthers, man. We forgot to talk about that. We got to get you down here at a game. They are a juggernaut. Panthers, Oilers, Panthers winning again.
I want to repeat.
I want to see hardware. We're bringing some hardware home again. Shad's not allowed in the National Carnival Center. He was rooting for the Maple Leafs.
I wasn't cheering for, like, listen.
Yes, you were. Every time that I said the Panthers were going to whoop their ass, you took the other side.
Listen, I'm a diehard Red Wings fan. Yeah, that's nothing to really think about these days. But listen, dude, come on. They won 4 cups in 10 years. I'm still spoiled, but the more I look at it, it's been close to 20 years now since they won the cups. I can't really live on that sort of.
Do something this century, Shad. All right, fellas. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for having us.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Well said. I just realized that what I just said there made sense. It's been since 2008. So it's time to move on, Shad. Time to move on.
2008 was the last cup the Red Wings won?
Yeah.
Yeah, but their nasty teams were what, 98, 99, 2000?
1997, I was in downtown Detroit at the age of 21, which was the legal drinking age. And oh, what a night that was.
I was 10 years old playing street hockey, pretending I was Brendan Shanahan. So that's how
it was a great night. That was. It was the first time they won the cup since 1955, which is 42 years. But man, time flies, because now we're talking 2008. That's 17 years.
Yeah.
But
we'll bring some hardware home again this season.
Honestly, unbelievable team. But the challenge in Toronto is this. You have a publicly traded telecom company that owns this organization, okay? They also own all the media assets. And the environment that they create is just, it's so pressure cooker where they're overanalyzed. And they don't have, outside of Bell, they don't really have any market share competition. So it's this big, huge monopoly of old baby boomer executives making these decisions, and they don't adjust with the times. And I'm just
we don't have state income tax, and we've got a winning culture down here.
Right.
So we'll keep just chewing through the Eastern Conference.
And a governor who loves hemp
for the next couple of years. Yeah, Ron DeSantis is. Yeah, Ron's whatever.
And the tush push is staying. Let's keep that legal.
That was BS to begin with. They shouldn't have even tried to ban that.
Yeah, we don't want to.
They want to ban something that happens to be working just because the team gets creative.
Right. Let's keep it regulated, man. We don't want the tush push to go black market. You'll see people out in the parking lots doing the tush push. Let's just keep it on the field.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that could go a couple different ways.
Yeah, I know. Listen, good show today. Really impressed with Kyle and Graham, and lots of stuff going on. We have anything lined up for Friday yet? I'm not sure if we do or not.
Not off the top of my head.
All right, we'll work on something. Anyway, leave some comments, people. Let us know your feedback on today's show. Love to get your feedbacks. Keep this conversation going. As usual, make sure to scan that QR code. Stay up to date. There's some stocks that are moving, so we'll quickly outline that in tomorrow morning's newsletter. So keep connected. And like I said, scan that QR code, become a baked-in newsletter subscriber that's delivered to your inbox weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. AV, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll see everybody back here Friday morning at 11 a.m. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody.
Well, I liked that one, didn't you? Let us know by leaving your comments below, and stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. We appreciate you logging on here today and learning more information about where this industry is headed. If you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications, and keep the conversation going by leaving some comments below. We always love to get your feedback. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for watching our latest Trade to Black podcast.